Right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. I'm Kristin Smedley, and I'm with my buddy Mary Fran Bontempo, and we have made a new friend. We knew in the first 2 minutes of us all opening this Zoom platform, and because we were all referred to each other from a mutual friend, Chip Baker, we just knew that we would be instantaneous, having a lot to talk about. So Mary Fran actually had to yell at me to hit record so we could capture the conversation because we already had jumped in. So we're here tonight with our new friend, Jeermal Sylvester, Mr. Me Too, Sylvester. And we're going to dive into that title. And Jeermal, we are just so excited that you're here to join us tonight.
Thank you guys for having me. I am truly excited. I've been excited since Chip connected us on the email. And so I'm looking forward to what tonight brings.
Okay. And you're out in Indianapolis, you said, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, terrific. So why don't you tell us, we're going to jump right into, we talk about when life hits you with a sucker punch or a train wreck happens in your life and you have to reset, whether that's your mindset to get going in a new path, pivot, or take a new perspective on things, and then rise into the new journey that you're going to be in and reveal your brilliance. So let's start back at I would love to sit here and know every single thing about your life, but Mary Fran will be hitting the fast forward on me so we can get to all the good stuff about resilience. So okay. Why don't we start with where you had to your own experience with resetting and rising?
Well, I've had, of course, like mostly everybody, I've had multiple situations, but the one that I'll talk about first would be the one that affected me probably the most. And so I played, I played basketball professionally overseas. So I was an all-state basketball player here in Indiana, went to Ball State University, played for 4 years, was able to get some attention from the NBA, the CBA. Those things didn't work out because of some choices. But I was able to get overseas. And so I played overseas for 4.5 seasons. And my last year of playing, I actually signed a contract for $100,000. And it was the biggest contract that I had signed, up to date. And so in my mind, I'm like, yes, I'm about to get ready. Yes, and I'm about to be able to change me and my family's life. And so the dream was to make it to the NBA. And that was one of the stepping stones. And 2 weeks before it was time for me to leave, I broke my kneecap.
Oh.
Yes. So talk about reset. I have spent so many years and so many hours and so much time and the blood, sweat, and tears into making this basketball dream come true. And now it's become my nightmare. And because I only focused on basketball, like when I went to Ball State, I knew that it was college, but for me, it was just another platform to be able to play basketball so that I could be seen, so that I could get to my dream. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't, while I was an A athlete, I was a C, low C student. And so I didn't take my academics seriously because if you guys are familiar with sports, typically they say that you need to have a C average in order to be eligible. And so the issue for me was I allowed somebody to set a low bar and then I hit it. Which was not
go
good.
For the low one. We know we can do that.
But I had no clue because I didn't know that what was transpiring the 4 years that I was in college would 20 years later affect me in a career. And so had I known those things, I'm sure I would have did some things differently, but I didn't. And so breaking my kneecap, it forced me to do some Star Trek. And now I have to figure out who Jeermal Sylvester is. Up until that point, I was Silk. That was my nickname on the basketball court. I was fairly smooth.
Did you say Silk?
Silk, S-I-L-K.
Oh, I love that.
Yes. So I've had several monikers or nicknames, but Silk was it. And so I knew who I was with a basketball in my hand. I was Silk. Now I can't play basketball anymore, and now I can't. And so now my whole identity had been wrapped up into the basketball. And now that I can't do it anymore, who am I? What am I going to do? And so I had to do some soul searching, and I had to allow people who were around me, who knew me, who had invested in me, And I had to ask them the question. So, you know, who do you think I am? Like, I couldn't answer it myself. And I was 25, 26 when this happened. So this is right like at the peak of my basketball career. And so it's like, okay, I know who this guy is, but now you ask me who Jeermal Sylvester is, and I'm dumbfounded. I can't even tell you. Like, I know that's my name, but I don't know. I don't know who he is, because I stopped being Jeermal Sylvester the moment I picked up a basketball. And so I couldn't answer that. Yeah, I was Silk, and I was trying to be Silk and be the best Silk that I could be every day. And so I spent the majority of my time, my waking hours, trying to perfect and become the best Silk that I could be. And so the injury forced me to, you know, sit back and kind of ask myself, you know, like, who are you? And it was a hard question to ask, because I had never, up to that point, I had never been asked that question. Even the people who were around me, they called me Silk. That's who I was all around my community in the basketball world. Oh man, that's Silk. And so I didn't have to answer to who is Jeermal Sylvester, because I was too busy being Silk, and everyone around me and in my ecosystem knew who Silk was. And so it was easy for me to transition to Silk. And so now I have to become Jeermal Sylvester, and it was rough. And so now I thought that I was going to play basketball my whole life. Like, I thought that I was going to either die on the court or I was going to be coaching as an old man with a cane. Like, I was going to be so involved and invested in basketball that was the only thing that I would do. And so now I have to figure out, okay, now that I can't play basketball, what else am I good at? And so my academic advisor at Ball State, I called her almost in tears, and I'm like, man, Miss Hall, like, you know, what do I do? Like, I didn't go to Ball State to be a teacher, a doctor, or a lawyer. I took those classes, and I didn't take those classes serious. You know, as I said, I was a low C average student. I could have been a better student, but I didn't apply myself. And so it was hard to figure out, like, what's next. And so she told me, she was like, man, do you remember when you used to do certain activities and you would be around kids and, like, you had a bounce in your step and your smile was the brightest? And I'm like, nah, like, I don't remember that. And so I took heed to that. I tried to, you know, go back in time and think about those moments, and it did. It sparked something in me. And I'm like, you know what? I do remember that. And I do remember being very happy being around kids and coaching kids and just hanging out with kids. And so I began to think about what careers could I do that were involved with kids. And I had my last 2 years at Ball State, I had begun to take criminal justice classes. And so she began to talk to me about, hey, you know, have you thought about working in corrections, or have you thought about doing youth development work? And so I got a job working as a mental health technician. And that was when it all started. Like, when you talk about seeing stars and having those epiphany aha moments, I got into that job and I seen not only the impact that I was having on young people, but I seen the impact that young people had on me, and that they provided me the energy to wake up every day before my alarm clock went off, because I knew that every day that I showed up to work, I had the potential of touching one of those young people's lives and changing their lives. And so I got fully invested in that, and it quickly went from being a job to becoming a career. Wow. And so, you know, my reset moment was probably one of the worst moments of my life. But it also, while it turned into a nightmare, it allowed me to dream another dream.
Well, I love it. I love that. You know, because that story, I was getting a little nervous that it was going to be like this regret. You never had basketball. My daughter, I was an athlete, but nowhere near the talent that my daughter, who's a freshman in high school. And I've often said to her, because she's very gifted, but I'm like, what happens if you have an injury? What happens if, and she hadn't thought about anything else, because she envisioned herself as a lifelong athlete. And then she did get hurt this year, and she was out for 2 months and had to rethink some things, luckily early for her. But I love that you said two big things, that you took a pause. We always say, and when you get hit by a live sucker punch, so many of us are just trying to figure it out, or we want to stuff it down and pivot right away and go do something else and not think about it and have a regret later. And we all always, you know, talk about taking a pause, getting your thoughts together before you make the next move, figure out, and you did the thing that at that age, I mean, I just learned in my 40s to do, was to raise your hand and ask for help from somebody. Instead of staying in your own head and going over and over your regrets and how can I move forward, you just reached out to somebody and somebody that really knew you and had some good direction for you. That was a great call.
Well, for me, it didn't happen right away. So because for the sake of time, I had to kind of give you the mini version of that.
Yeah.
So you spent some time licking your wounds.
Oh my God, did I? and so I delved, I fell into drugs, alcohol, depression set in. And so this whole mental health aspect, and not to diminish mental health or depression. I think sports depression is far worse. If you've been an athlete and you've reached a certain apex in that sport or whatever it is that you did, and you live for the claps.
Yeah.
And you live to see your name in the newspaper. And now you can't do that anymore. So now where does the claps from? Nobody's calling to interview you anymore.
Yeah.
There's not
and you know what? You were in such an elite group. Like, it's not even like the people that you knew closest to you in your life could say, hey, yeah, man, I had that experience and here's what I did.
Right.
You had probably so few people that could have related to you on any level. And so I totally get, I mean, my son's in recovery from heroin addiction. And I mean, a lot of that was wrapped up in his identity and who he thought he was supposed to be and you know, whatever. I can't presume to get into his head, but I can see why you went down that hole. I mean, how could you not? You had no idea who you were supposed to be.
And it's something that Kristin just said, how when you talk about being able to take a pause and kind of reset and think things through. Well, I wasn't really able to do that. I had spent so much time in making this NBA dream come true that how could I think about doing anything else? Or why would I think of me potentially being hurt? That could interfere with the dream if I think in that way, because I'm not gonna strive for perfection, or I'm not going to strive for greatness if I have in the back of my mind, oh man, you have the potential of being hurt. So why would I go after someone with all my heart and all my might if I think that I have the potential of being hurt? And so that was never in my psyche. Like, I never thought about that. Like, I'm Superman. Like, that's not going to happen to me. And then when it happened, it was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've heard the stories, but like everybody else, man, that was him or that was her. That could never happen to me because I did it different, and that's not my path. That was their path. And so it rocked my world. Like, ultimately, like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I literally was stuck and I was paralyzed. And so, like I said, I was in that for about a year, 2 years, where I was smoking marijuana and I was popping Darvocets and Percocets and Vicodins and chasing it with alcohol. And just because I was trying to wash the pain away, because now every day that I wake up, I have to deal with this reality that that dream that I had is not going to become my reality anymore. And so, like I said, when you put all of that time and effort and energy into that, I see why people quit and why people give up and why people delve off into drugs, because, man, that's a lot of time and that's a lot of pain that comes with that. Like, man, I put all of that time into that.
Yeah.
Why would I want to find something else to put so much time and effort and energy in so that I can have the potential of being hurt again? So I understand why people get stuck.
So what made you come out of that and raise your hand and say you needed some help?
Just having good people around me. And I don't even think that it was people who fully understood the words that they were speaking into my life or what they meant to me, but to have people around me still just loving me and telling me that I was still great and that, you know, basketball, that's okay, you're gonna bounce back, or just, you know, just those words were empowering me. But then to have a mentor, his name is Patrick Earl Magley, I call him Dad. He's my spiritual father. He had an organization called Heroes Camp that was faith-based, and he used basketball as a hook, but we had to go to Bible study in order to play basketball.
Ah, cool.
And so he was infusing this spiritual thing in me. Even when in my head, I was like, man, I don't want this. I don't want no parts of God. Or, because in my head, I'm like, God, if you really love me like you say you love me, why would you let this happen?
Yeah, why'd you break my knee?
Yeah, you were mad. Why'd you break my knee?
I was angry. Like, I literally, I remember sitting on the floor looking up in the sky, looking like, really, God? Like,
come on, fight me, God.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
fight me.
Like,
wow,
really, God.
Like, I've did some things, but I'm not that bad of a person that you would take this from me. Like,
yeah,
know that this is it for me. Like, if this doesn't come true, like, my life is going to be messed up, and the people that are close to me life is going to be messed up. And my whole purpose of making it to the NBA, it was I had some monetary wants and desires with it, but ultimately it was just to change my life and the people that was close to me lives, period.
Yeah, I hear that. Mary Fran and I both have it's very good to know that I've got competition with who God says was the biggest, loudest jerk, because I was like, I look so bad now knowing you guys, thank you very much, because I was like, who do you think you are? Are you kidding me with this? I find out that my one son is blind, the next one might be blind. Are you kidding me? But I did the same thing about what did I ever do? I followed all the rules. What did I ever do? What did he ever do? This is mean. I'm like, you're a mean God. And then finally at least I had my whole change in perception. Although it's funny you say about the Bible study and basketball, because I was so mad for years that I turned away. And then it was a neighbor of mine, when all my kids, I had it feels like 13 kids, but I only have 3. It feels like 13. And they were very, very little. And a neighbor said, hey, I found this new church. You want to go to a Bible study? I'm like, yeah, I don't do Bible study. And she's like, well, it's actually a book that you read with a group. You want to go? And I go, yeah, I don't read books with groups in church. And then she goes, they have free babysitting. And I go, I'm in.
Right. I need a break.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I want to get into this, Mr. Me Too.
Okay.
I need to know what that's about. So you got into working with kids, and then what developed beyond that? Because I have a feeling this is where your brilliance comes in.
Absolutely. And so as I began to work in the mental health space, I began to see that I had a skill set and that kids were attracted to me. And so my mentor told me that he has a knucklehead anointing, and that's why I was attracted to him. And so I think I have a double portion of knucklehead in me. And so knuckleheads are attracted to me. And so I would work with these kids, and we would, build these phenomenal relationships, and they would look at me and for advice, and we would have, discussions. And because I wasn't at a certain point, I stopped being afraid of telling my story and not just telling the good parts. I think sometimes as adults, and when we get older and we get fancy letters behind our names, we only want to promote the good parts.
Yeah.
And so somehow God allowed me to get okay with telling the bad parts. And I've gotten better and accepted telling the bad parts more than the good, because everybody has a good story to tell. Yeah. But let's talk about these bad stories and how these bad stories have ultimately made you who you are. And so in me telling those stories, the kids will be like, yeah, right. You did that? Wait, hold on, man. You dropped out of school, you broke your kneecap. Like, they were looking at me like, there's no way that you did that. And I'm like, yes, man. And so when they would begin to share their stories, I would then be able to tell them, guess what? Me too.
Oh, I love it.
Guess what? Me too. And this is youth. I've worked in juvenile corrections. I've worked in adult corrections. No matter where I've worked, when I build relationship with people, and then I give them the freedom, because I showed all my spots, that it's okay for them to tell me theirs, that now they begin to have conversations with me. And then I say, guess what? Me too. And while I can empathize with your story, I'm not going to let you off the hook, because I know, based on experience and the work that I've done, and just in my own life, a lot of times I had people who over-empathize with me, and over-empathizing allows the person that's stuck to stay stuck, because it's poor Kristin, it's poor Mary Fran, it's poor Jeermal. Well, I don't need that. I need you to say, okay, you know what? Man, I see that, you know what, that happened to you. Man, that sucks. But okay, let's see how we can turn this around and how we can take what happened to us and make it work for us. So we're going to recycle our pain. And so I stopped over empathizing with people. And when I did that, like, it took off for me. And I began to have speaking engagements and go out and speak and share my story and talk to people. Like you said, what people always hear the story, but most people want to hear how. How did you come out of that?
Yeah.
Because I'm stuck right now and I don't know how to get out of this pit that I'm in. Help. And so
you know
that's
what, Jeermal? That simple phrase, guess what, me too. Gosh, that is such a powerful hand up to somebody. Because no matter where we are when we're in that crisis, we do feel like we're alone. We feel like, this never happened to anybody. At least it happened to other people, but not the way it happened to me, and blah, blah, blah. And you can get so mired in that. But just that outreach of, guess what, me too.
Well, even,
and I'm not still there.
A lot of the people that we talk to in our own stories, it's stuff that a lot of times it's stuff that happened to us. But when people make bad choices and they cause something and then they feel there is so much shame that you saying, you know what, me too. It's like that. It gives them permission to drop the shame. And then that's where they can start to rise. Yeah. Even in like my divorce, I mean, that wasn't, okay, it takes two people to implode a relationship, but there's so much, I guess, in my mind, shame and all that in failure of marriage that I couldn't break out of that. And it was meeting other people that I couldn't believe their stories and what they had been through. And I didn't realize that they had gone through divorce. And as that shame started to disappear, people can tell right about when that happened, because my life, the trajectory started to go back up. But that really, when you said it and you tell that story beautifully, you know what, me too, that's so powerful. It's you gotta probably see the people, just the weight starts to come off of them.
And that's what I was about to say. What I see is a transfer, and I've given them the power of allowing them to be themselves all over again. Mm-hmm. Because what ends up happening when you become shameful, or you shameful is the perfect word for it. When you become shameful of your story or what you've done or what happened to you, you stop being yourself. Mm-hmm. And then
because you're hiding.
And that's what you end up doing. And so now it's like, you know what? Let me take this off. And you know what? Yep. Guess what? Yeah, I did that. Yes, I used to smoke weed, and yes, I abused alcohol. And okay, and it's something in the Bible. And I had an older gentleman that I work with, and he used to tell me all the time. He was like, "Man, just agree with your adversary quickly, and he'll flee." And I'm not sure. I think it's in Mark and Matthew. I'm not sure, but it's in one of them. And I'm like, well, what is the adversary? For years, I always thought that it was the devil. Well, the adversary is the truth. The moment you agree with the truth, because you think about it, when you tell a lie, and then when someone knows that you told a lie, they have so much power over you. And when they know that they got you in a lie, they use it. And so they continue to ask you questions around the lie that you told, and it forces you to hide even more. And the more you hide, and the more now after a while, you figure you do that for 5 or 10 years, it's almost impossible for you to come back to become yourself. Because now you've lived a lie for 10 years.
Yeah.
And so that lie has become you. And so it's the truth. And so you have to agree with the truth. And the moment that I agree with the truth, and I say, you know what, as much as I don't like it, and I'm not saying that it's easy to agree with the truth. Because it's not.
Right. No, it's not.
But for me, it's about how can I get better? I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And if I need to get to the next, then I have to agree with the truth. And that's what I've been all about. And so I empower people to agree with the truth. And when I say, guess what, me too, it's like, man, you know what, man, we are just alike. And so now I level the playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is so important, because so often when we're in those dark places, we think we're never going to reach where other people are. There's that constant comparison, and we never think we're going to get out of that pit. And when you say, yeah, me too, I was there, right away, you're standing next to somebody, and they feel that, as opposed to feeling like they're looking up at everybody else above them. That's awesome. I love it. So where can people find you to get this wisdom? Because we need to hear more of this. Where do you have a website? Where are you?
I do, and it's under construction. So I have, they can still get to it. And so I'll start off first with my social media. I'm at Mr. Jeermal_2TOO_Indy on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, Jeermal, Jeermal, Mr. Me Too, Sylvester, Sylvester, on LinkedIn. I love both of those platforms and I'm sure you guys know, you have to find what's your niche.
Yep.
At first I thought that I was going to be on everything, and Facebook and me don't get along. We don't. And so I'm very like kind of hands-offish, and people are, man, you have to get on Facebook. I don't know. And so I have a page, but I don't use it. And so I very seldom tell people about it because I don't post on it. But Instagram, I'm always on it. I'm constantly, following people. I follow you guys now. And so I'm constantly following like-minded, like-quality people. And so I'm on IG and I'm on Instagram. And then my website, because I want to make sure I give you guys the right one.
You have a Wix website, or are you making a new?
Yes, I have a Wix.
Because I can put the link to it in the when we put the video out, because it's a little, it's kind of long.
I'll attach it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, send that over to us, and then we'll make sure that we get that info out there. And I am just so delighted that we were able to pull this together and do this, because I love everything that you're about. I love the fact that we had an athlete here, because I know that world is so tightly defined around the sport and the skill. And when you lose that, it just takes everything away. And for you to share that story was so empowering. So thank you for joining us.
No problem. And so I have I'm currently, during this COVID-19 pandemic, I'm not trying to give it any more power than it already has as far as the negativity behind it. And I don't want to diminish the effects that it's had. But I've also used this time of isolation as a time of elevation. And so I've always strongly suggested people to dust off the things that, I know oftentimes we always say, man, I wish I had more time to do this, take this class, or work on this craft that I used to work on. Now is the time, because time is the one thing that we can never recover, but somehow our God, even in this pandemic, has provided us with the gift of time.
Isn't it amazing?
It is.
I mean,
so I'm utilizing that.
I felt guilty in the beginning that I was so excited to have the extra time, because I was way over scheduled. I had scheduled myself way too much away from my kids. And I thought, and when it happened, I was like, oh my God, I have been so hopeful for more time. And that's, so that's Mary Fran and I are using every possible extra second to do as much as we can while we can to get, I know she's thrilled to see my face every day.
Every blessed day, multiple times.
It's a beautiful thing what you guys are doing. So when Chip connected us, and of course I went to the website and saw, what you guys are doing. And then when you sent me over the email with the attachment, and I read through that, I'm like, yes, this is, I don't even have to write it down. Like, you guys, how you set it up, on how you ask the questions and just the flow of it. I'm like, that's my life. Like, I could just easily just tell my story, and it's going to flow with
and that's how we want it to be. That's how we wanted genuine people that have stuff that are willing to talk about when they had to reset. And then everybody can learn from that. And you're helping so many people. That's your role, to help all these other people reset, which is huge. And so make sure you stay in touch with us. And when the new website, you said you're working on a website, and let us know the other stuff you're doing. And I'll put it in the Facebook group since you're not here. And I'll make sure it's on Instagram, because Mary Fran doesn't like to be there.
I don't like that.
See, we got something in common.
We do. We'll get you covered, but it's not going to be one direction. It's going to be piecemeal, but we got you covered.
And so just one last thing before I go, I'm currently in the process of writing a book, and it's around the story. And so the title is What Happens When the Dream Doesn't Come True. And then I have a ... and then a space in between it. And then I say, you dream another dream.
I love that.
And this is for athletes. This is for people during this COVID pandemic who have to make a shift in careers. This is for my seniors in high school, my seniors in college who are, affected by this, who can't have senior prom and who can't have senior grad. Like, what happens? Because I know the time and the energy and the effort that you put into it. And so now that can't be your reality, don't allow that to keep you from moving forward, because you have a next. And so now it's dream another dream. And so that's what the book will be about. And so I'm hoping to have that done here in the next month or so that I could push that out, because I think that it'll add value and it'll have major impact on my athletes, of course, because they'll be able to resonate with that story. But then also my everyday people who also have had dreams that for whatever reason they didn't come true, that now they can see that, you know what, it's okay.
Yeah.
I can pivot. Let me find something else that I'm good at, that I used to do, that I kind of throw to the wayside because I had kids, or I chased after my career, or, you know, any of those things that typically happen in our adult lives. And so that's what I'm doing. And so keep pressure on me. Ask me about it. Ask me how I'm doing with it.
Oh, we will.
I want to get it done.
Oh,
I like to lean,
because I want that for my kids. I want my kids to have a tool like that in their toolbox for when they do have later on things don't work out for them, that they have something that they can go back to. So yeah. Oh, Mary Fran will stay right
and
on.
I just like to lean on people and hound them. So I'll happily do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And God bless you guys.
Thank you so much.
I smile now now that I know what Mr. Me Too means. I'm like, man, that is good stuff. So
Awesome.
everybody go follow Mr. Me Too. And I know that we're gonna see great stuff with that book and the stuff that you have going on. I'm so excited that Chip connected us, and I'm really excited that you took the time to hang out with us. So thank you for that, and thank you for everybody tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Brilliantly Resilient Live.
See you.